Three girls followed through the woods. When I was a junior in college, my friend invited me to attend a ballet with her and a teenage girl she knew from back home. The girl was part of an educational advancement program that had placed her in a nearby high school and provided free room and board in a group home with other students. All of her housemates had gone home for fall break, so my friend thought it would be nice to take her out on a girls' night, away from that big empty house with only her program advisor for company. It was about midnight when we got back from the ballet, since we were in possession of a 16-year-old girl who's overdue for curfew. It seemed important to get her home as quickly as possible. The girl's house was fairly close to a student shuttle stop on the far end of campus, so we figured we'd walk her home before doubling back. While moving up a footpath that leads into town, we realized her house backed up into Arboretum on the edge of campus. Rather than walk all the way around, we decided to cross the Arboretum. We didn't have flashlights, but my friend's iPhone flash could serve in a pinch, and the stretch of woods was sandwiched between the brightly lit windows of our dorms and those of the houses across the way. Several minutes into our hike, we lost sight of the footpath and the dorms. It was much darker now, and my friend was less certain we were walking in the right way. So we paused to check our location. We were all huddled, motionless, around my friend's phone, when we heard a twig crack behind us. We turned around to find a young woman, presumably a student, standing a few yards away. Her hoodie was pulled up over her head, obscuring most of her face. She seemed enormous, but given that I'm 5'3" and was flanked by two 5-foot ballet dancers, the threshold of enormity was low. She was silent for a moment, then asked us where we were going. "We're headed into town," my friend answered. "Where are you going?" "What do you need in town?" "We're taking her home," my friend pointed to the teenage girl. "Where does she live?" "Not too far. Where are you going?" "Do you know how to get there?" She started walking towards us. The teenage girl grabbed a fistful of my coat and inched closer to me. "Yeah, we figured it out. Are you going towards campus or into town?" "Which way is it?" "Her house." She was now within a few feet. Her approach had slowed, but not yet stopped. My friend quickly blurted out, "Just this way. Good night." She was bluffing, but any direction away from the student seemed like the right direction, so we went along. The plan was a fail. Within seconds, I could hear her crunching the leaves just behind me. She was falling close enough to touch me, and I sped up, certain I was about to get a knife in my spine if I didn't get away. When my friend saw me rushing, she turned back to see the student following us. She grabbed the teenager's hand, and the three of us began to run. We never turned back, so I'm not sure how long the student followed. Eventually, we figured out we were running the right way when the teenager yelled out, "That's it!" and led us to a driveway where we could huff and puff ourselves back to normal under a garage-mounted floodlight. The girl's program advisor was home, waiting up for her missing ward, and made each of us a cup of tea while we waited for the campus police to drive out and escort me and my friend back to our dorm. Once safely in the back seat of a college security vehicle, we told the officer why we wanted a ride instead of walking back. She said this was the third time this semester they had picked up students running scared from the woods after encountering a strange girl in a hoodie. They dispatched officers to look into it before, but they never found anyone. He figured it was just a student on a stroll through the dorms, and we had nothing to worry about. As soon as we got out of the car, my friend got a text from the teenager. She was certain she'd seen a student outside her window, but when the program advisor went out to investigate, no one was there. I never found out what happened, but I really hope the creepy girl in the woods is not the same student whose body was found out there a year later. I hope she had nothing to do with that at all. House sitting. I worked at a lessons stable from 15 to 19. I quit working there this past August when I got a job managing a farrier supply shop. I picked up a lot of jobs house sitting while working at the lesson barn. The families were all very nice and it paid well. This past November, I was staying at one of the family's houses and watching their lab, Maggie, while they were on vacation. They lived in a really nice neighborhood on the outskirts of Old Town. The house was on the far end of the neighborhood, and thick trees flanked the backyard, and a dirt road ran behind the trees. I had accidentally went down the road the first time I tried to find the house, and there wasn't much down there, but an abandoned house with a lot of deer in the front yard, and a small ranch house that retained its spot even though many mansions had sprung up around it. The first night, everything went great. Second night, not so much. I had a weird feeling for a few hours before I went to bed, but I wrote it off as spending too much time on Reddit no sleep and Reddit creepy. I made sure all the doors were locked, blinds were closed, and I went to bed just after midnight, still feeling uneasy. Maggie usually sleeps with me, but that night, she just followed me up the stairs to the bedroom and then sulked back downstairs. At 2:26 a.m., Maggie woke me up by standing next to the bed and whining. I just let her out before I went to bed, so I'm pretty sure she didn't have to use the bathroom. I rolled back over and hoped she would stop, but she didn't. I gave in soon enough, and I climbed out of bed and I realized the house was freezing cold. I followed Maggie downstairs to the kitchen. The door to the backyard was wide open. The doors that go into their house are weird. You can't open any of the doors from the inside or outside without a key. Not to mention, this was a heavy door, not the kind that just gets blown open by the wind. The only thing that eased my mind was that Maggie didn't seem ready to kill an intruder, and she'll usually at least bark at you. So I did a quick look around. I was too scared to do anything more. Nothing seemed out of place. The owners often left credit and debit cards as well as wads of cash laying on the counters, and it was all there. If anyone was going to steal something, it was right next to the door and easy pickings. But since nothing was missing, I tried to brush it off as forgetting to lock the door and the wind. I made sure to lock it this time and went back to bed. Maggie still didn't want to sleep with me and went back downstairs. Less than an hour later, she woke me up again. This time I didn't question her. I crept back downstairs more cautiously than I had before. The back door was open again. This time, the key I had sitting on the kitchen island was in the lock. Someone had been in the house with me. Police were called. They looked around the house and found no one. Everything of value was still in its place, so I really worry about the intentions of whoever broke in. The family was shocked that something like that had happened, and have since moved to a large farm 20 minutes away that has video surveillance up. After a year of no contact, my stalker is back. I go to a mid-sized, well-respected public college, about 5,000 people. It's big enough that everyone doesn't get totally sick of each other, but definitely small enough that it feels like everyone knows everyone. My freshman year, I made friends pretty quickly. My roommate sucked, but I quickly bonded with people on my freshman hall, especially my current best friend, Megan. Megan went to a high school that was basically a feeder school for my college, with about 100 people coming in from her school as freshmen, which was good, since I automatically got myself a circle of friends. She introduced me to her best friend from high school, Tim, and we all became fast friends. Over our freshman fall break in October, Tim, Megan, and I planned a trip to go to Tim's lake house for a few days. Included in the trip was Victor, Tim's roommate, and a few of Megan and Tim's friends from high school. I never met Victor before. He was a huge, handsome Eastern European, and I immediately liked him. We were both taking Russian classes and interested in majoring in Russian, and we talked a lot on the way up to the lake house. It's important to note that I had a huge crush on Tim since the beginning of the year. The first night the four of us were hanging out, basically getting wasted, Tim had a cat, and at some point, I wandered outside to go look for it, and Victor came too. We talked for a bit, and then he kissed me. I was okay with it mostly, but I broke off the kiss after a few minutes because I wasn't really interested. Later that night, Tim was incredibly drunk and tried to kiss me in front of Victor. Of course, he was incredibly drunk and I just pushed him off and went to bed. The next morning, Victor was unreasonably upset, refused to talk to me, basically threw a big fit, and was freaking out. I thought it was super weird because A, it wasn't like we had sex or I had sex with Tim, and B, I just fucking met the guy the day before. I sort of just brushed it off and continued with the trip. That night, all of us just got plastered again. Victor made a move and I went with it. I wish I hadn't, but the guy is really attractive and foreign and tall, so we just made out. This is the second night I knew him. At this point, Megan had gotten a little too drunk, and Tim was taking care of her in the bathroom. Apparently, she kept asking for me, so Tim came to get me. Victor got very upset. He wouldn't let me leave, grabbing my arm and telling me to stay, and that Megan would be fine without me. I, even in my drunk state, got super weirded out. He then tells me that he loves me. I note right out of there and take care of Megan. She's puking and I'm taking care of her. Victor keeps coming into the bathroom trying to get me to leave. After I put Megan to bed, he keeps coming into my room asking to sleep in the bed with me and Megan. I use the excuse that she was super drunk and I didn't want to wake her. He eventually leaves. The next night, Megan and I keep Tim in the bed with us as well. It was a California king, I think. Victor comes in at some point high and gets very upset that Tim is there. I pretend to be asleep. He leaves. We all go back to school the next day, and I continue to my house to spend a night there before resuming classes. That night, I get a phone call at 1 a.m. It's Megan. She's outside of Tim and Victor's room. Victor locks himself in his room and begins screaming about how much he loves me, and that if he can't have me, he wants to kill himself. Tim is calling me, asking if I can come to the room. Even if I was on campus, I wouldn't come and I tell him so. He asked me to at least call him, please, and I tell him I'm super freaked out by Victor and want nothing else to do with him. I tell them to go call the RA if they're worried and hang up. I try to go back to sleep but cry instead. I vow to not deal with this shit anymore. I'm still really freaked out by the whole situation. I had known the guy for 3 days now. But when I got back to school the next morning, I tried to put it behind me. For the rest of the semester, exams rolled around, then winter break, then we were going back to school for the spring semester of my freshman year. On my first day of class, I walk into my Russian language class and sit down. Immediately after comes Victor, who sits down right next to me. Now, our Russian department is a small department, so it could have been a coincidence. He didn't know which section I was registered for though. I'm not thrilled, but there's nothing I can do. At one point, we were assigned to be partners for a project, and we worked together outside of class. He was relatively fine. It's worth noting that Tim had totally dismissed all of my worries. For spring break, Megan, Tim, and I go to the lake house again, since it was free for us to stay up there basically. Victor and his friend Charles comes as well, along with a few other people. During this trip, Victor tells me that he loves me so much and that I make him nervous, that he has to be high when he talks to me or else he gets too scared. I immediately leave the room and ignore him. He and his friend Charles make fun of me, and then, after I get upset, he follows me into my room and apologizes. I'm having really mixed feelings about whether I think he's just lonely and weird or like really creepy and evil. We chat a little towards the end of the year about our living situation, classes for next year, etc. We see each other every day for class and talk minimally outside of that. Now, for sophomore year, Megan and I were living in a specialized language housing for Russian majors. It makes sense that Victor applied to live there, so I didn't think it was like creepy or anything. Megan and I moved in. Things immediately got super weird. First, when I realized that he has registered for multiple classes that I'm in, classes that I knew he wasn't originally registered. He told me that he transferred to my classes because it would be fun to take more classes with you than just Russian. So now I get to see him in my dorm, which was tiny with shared living spaces such as kitchen and dining areas, and I get to see him hours a day in class. I talk to him more because I pretty much have to, but his roommate and Megan hit it off, so we end up hanging out sometimes while giving them alone time in either my room or in his room. One night, I come home drunk and he kisses me. I'm okay with kissing, but when he tries to go farther, I leave. He has some personal disaster that I get drawn into. He's suicidal. I give him attention because I'm worried, and my best friend from high school has committed suicide. He gets better. He admits to me some of the things that he has done to other girls, including showing up at their houses in the middle of the night and being obsessed with people. I dislike it. We stopped talking because he began to make me feel extremely uncomfortable. Megan and I notice that he's getting really close to our RA. We know that she's previously had a stalker and been in an abusive relationship, so Megan talks to her about Victor and some of the things that he's pulled. Apparently, she returns his feelings and immediately tells him what Megan said. He's not pleased. His friend Charles, who came on spring break with us freshman year, comes into our dorm and threatens to kill Megan in front of many people, including our RA. I'm not home, but when I hear about it, I get straight up pissed. I tell Victor to keep Charles on a leash and to essentially fuck off. We ignore each other. The next night, I'm in the kitchen around 1 a.m. making a Hot Pocket when Victor comes up to me. I honestly remember thinking that he was going to apologize for Charles' behavior. Instead, he grabs me, drags me outside, and begins screaming at me. I don't remember everything he said, but he wouldn't let me back in the dorm and was physically blocking me. He left bruises. He scared the shit out of me. I'm an easy scare or a small girl, I'm 5'8", but Victor is around 6'5", and he was screaming and I was tipsy and I didn't like that. As a note, this happened in front of several people as well. No one likes Victor in the dorm, and everyone has seen him act inappropriately and threatening towards me. Immediately after this happened, we tried to talk to our RA about the situation. She's our RA, and we thought she would at least try to do her job. He freaking assaulted me, and his friend threatened to kill Megan. She decides the best situation is mediation and forces us to sit down. Victor lies completely and denies that any of the events happened. Megan and I can see clearly she's not going to do anything, and we decide to go to the school. We explain everything that's happened since freshman year, and now that the RA and Victor are dating, we felt threatened and unsafe in our dorm, and we felt that the RA couldn't do her job properly anymore. We were told that essentially we had no proof that anything would be happening. We were called liars. We were told that if we pursue the issue, we could get in trouble for harassing Victor. Megan and I are extremely upset, but this was through our school's Dean of Students department. We looked into switching dorms, but nothing is available. We just decided to make the best of it. Our RA's room is right next door, on the other side of our wall. For the rest of the year, Victor and the RA sit in her room and listen to Megan and I when we're having conversations. The first weekend of the spring semester, I'm out at a party, while Megan has people from our dorm hanging out in our room. Victor and the RA are sitting in the common area. I walk in the door around 11 p.m., then go to my room. They watch me. 5 seconds after I come into the room, the RA comes in and writes everyone up for alcohol and noise violations. She directly lies in her statement about when I came into the room and whether there was alcohol involved. She states that she saw alcohol out, which is completely untrue. Everyone in the room got a slap on the wrist, except me, because everyone testified that I wasn't even there right until the RA came into the room. It was almost as if she had been waiting for me to come home to write both Megan and I up together. A few weeks later, I fracture my spine and have to spend almost all of my free time in the dorm. It sucks. A month after our first write-up, we're written up again. This time we don't know why, and when we get our emails about having to go see the Dean of Students, we're confused. It turns out that someone had heard us talking about weed, and we were written up on a drug violation, which is very serious. Nothing can be done, of course, since there was no evidence, but we're essentially told to watch ourselves because, according to the dean, someone is really out to get you in your dorm. The end of the year comes. Megan takes the year off and I move off campus. I don't see Victor or the RA anymore for the most part. I know that Victor and the RA both live in the same dorm as last year. I saw Victor on my street a few times, but I really just tried to ignore it and pretend it was a coincidence. There were a few strange incidents of people knocking at my door in the middle of the night, and I suspected it might be Victor, but I never had any proof, and I like to think that, hey, it probably wasn't him, right? I dropped Russian, partially due to Victor, and now I'm a psychology major. I have a serious boyfriend. Now the end of the year has rolled around, and I'm getting together with my living situation for next year, because I'm moving out of my current house and moving into a new one in a few days. I went to my old dorm to pick up a deposit check from one of my future roommates for next year a few days ago, James. James asked me what classes I'm planning to take over the summer, and when he asked, I wasn't sure, so I just named the one class that I have to take for sure. Victor was in the common area during this conversation, but I didn't think anything of it. I haven't seen him for a year basically. Fast forward to today, I check my roster for my classes to see if I know anyone. Lo and behold, I do. It's Victor. It's a class that he has no reason to be taking if he weren't a psychology major, which I know for a fact that he isn't. It's been so long, and I might be overreacting, but he knew I was going to be in that class. He's done this kind of thing before. It's a mandatory class for 4 days a week, for 2 hours a day, with only a few people in it for 3 months. It could be a coincidence, but honestly, I really don't think it is. Since he's pulled this kind of stuff in the past, he has a history of obsession, specifically obsession with me, and I just feel like I'm being pulled into this again. I talked to my therapist a few hours ago in a panic, and she agrees that it doesn't sound like a coincidence. I have to take this class. Switching is not an option. I'm just so worried. I spent years, literally years, being harassed by Victor, and now he's back in my life, and it's not like I can report him for being in the same class as me. I'm just so upset and anxious about this now. I just can't believe he's back. I spent 2 years looking over my shoulder for him and jumping at every noise on my street. I thought it was over, you know?